He found a living doll in the dump. She looks cute at first, but she's anything but sweet. Extremely aggressive, and after capturing her, the protagonist starts thinking about how to make money from her unique talents.
Yeah, boy.
But before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Our story begins with a portal radiating intense energy, vibrating the air around it. Safes spread across the world, hidden for centuries, have random locations, making them rare and valuable. The dungeons are protected by curses and cruel beasts. A colossal serpent, with malevolent scarlet eyes, is one of the many threats in the depths. They are impenetrable fortresses, resisting any invasion. Only powerful and fearless adventurers can pass through its portals and face the challenges that frighten the unprepared. That is, until the creation of a revolutionary new weapon. The image features a holographic screen that displays, "Would you like to purchase a summon?" Next, it presents the buttons, yes or no. And the answer is, yes. Suddenly, an energy circulates through the dungeon floor, emanating a cutting force that makes the wind howl and the environment vibrate. Currents of energy sparkle, creating mystical patterns. In the midst of the energy, a majestic figure appears, an imposing warrior radiating power and authority. Your presence makes the air vibrate. The holographic screen displays, "Congratulations! You have received a super rare class weapon." With one step, the impact of his arrival is thunderous. The warrior wears white and gold chains and black metal boots with golden lines, highlighting the uniqueness and power of the living weapon. The warrior faces the colossal serpent, his eyes fixed and ready for combat while the energy surrounding his body appears. As a super rare summon, they can harness their summoner's anima. The crystalline serpent, immense and threatening, attacks with a direct attack, its mouth open and ready to make the fatal strike. All around, the air breaks with the fast and powerful advance of the beast that attacks, trying to finish it off. However, the man reacts and with impressive speed passes through the snake using an electric blade so fast that the creature is not able to react to the fatal and cutting blow with devastating effect. The snake falls, split in half, with particles of electricity still running through its body. The warrior remains standing, victorious, with energy pulsing around him, showing the power of the invocation. These powerful warriors, we call them battle dolls, but they are a rich man's tool, granted only to the few lucky souls who can say that fate is on their side. We are then shown a seemingly excited rich man standing under a summon purchase panel as his butler warns him that he has already done too many summons and asks him if it is time for him to give up. However, apparently out of control, the rich man claims that he cannot stop without winning the real prize, and in the meantime, he throws more coins at the panel, with glassy eyes and hands shaking with anxiety. He asks his butler why he should stop if he is able to buy as many summons as he wants. So your coins fall under the panel while you frantically press the yes option to acquire a new invocation. Destiny is a beautiful word used by people who can afford it, but unfortunately for our protagonist, he doesn't consider himself one of those people, and waking up startled and nervous, we are introduced to him. He is lying on a sofa, with the alarm clock beeping repeatedly on his belly, creating an irritating sound that echoes throughout the room, disturbing the stillness of the environment and thus waking him up for another day. Now, awakened, the protagonist stands in a room marked by the many tools that are around the place. His metal arm is notable, with a peculiar design, a box on his forearm and a white glove. "Go to work then," the man says, preparing himself for the day to come, his tone revealing his seemingly uneventful day. As our protagonist walks through the city, next to him are two men talking about the lottery, where they express surprise at the luck of a woman who bought 3 times and won a 4-star invocation. Our protagonist is surprised to observe something unusual before him. His fixed gaze reveals a mixture of fascination and disbelief at what is in front of him. He was watching the hologram news announcing the availability of a new 5-star battle figure called Ice-type Gyu in the Elite Lottery. The message offered the chance to win the item. With a yawn, our protagonist doesn't seem surprised, saying that a new model always comes out demonstrating his habit with new things. While everyone around him remains delighted and surprised by the news, he walks right past it skeptically, stating that no one in that city would have enough money to spend on something so extravagant. "Some more beer here," says a voice coming from inside the bar. The request is clearly audible even from outside, where people passing by stop for a moment to listen to the call. Inside the bar, The voice came from a restless and noisy man, complaining to the chef that he was still waiting for his food. The chef, trying to calm him down, patiently asked him to wait just a moment. Amidst the noise of tools, the scene reveals our protagonist concentrated, with precision and focus, repairing the maid doll that belonged to the chef. Because as the engineer, although without meaning to offend, states in this city the most you can find are cheap dolls like this, simple and common, reflecting the modest reality of the place. While he works focused on his engineering services, he is questioned by the chef who anxiously tries to find out if the doll is ready to operate, as he needs it immediately. Appearing to have finished the work, the engineer finally removes his precision glasses, already having a diagnosis about his service. He concludes the result of his operation, saying that the anima's core is cracked and that the reservoir is bleeding dry. He says this while presenting the anima artifact. Impatient and irritated, the bar chef shows displeasure and complains that he doesn't understand what this means and just wants it fixed. The young engineer responds that for that he needs a new part. With a smile, our protagonist adds that there will be an extra cost for this. The chef starts an argument with the engineer, stating that this was not what they agreed on. The engineer, however, contradicts him, questioning him and saying that he had only given an estimated value. He, however, with his discontent, creates an impasse where he denies, telling the engineer to forget it and that he should pay with his own money or nothing will happen. "Are you kidding me?" thinks the engineer, frustrated by the chef's attitude. He concluded and thought that he couldn't afford the piece, but he also needed the work. Think about where you could find a spare. Then, he recalls an old incident. In his memory, an explosion radiates through the place, creating enormous devastation. The memory is vivid and disturbing, bringing up intense emotions. In that same memory, we see his father right in front of him as they are both hit by the explosion. But his father is completely engulfed by the flames, disappearing in the devastation as he is thrown back by the impact. He then screams in despair for his father as his left arm is severely damaged. This memory haunts him, bringing pain whenever he relives it. Meanwhile, a drunk man talking to his friend makes fun of his metallic arm, sarcastically commenting that there was a doll repairing another doll. Meanwhile, a drunk talking to his friend makes fun of the engineer's metal arm, commenting that there was a dummy repairing another dummy. His friend adds, saying that, "You have to be one to know one." This really bothers the young engineer, who frowns and keeps his eyes closed in anger, while the drunken duo's laughter echoes around him. He stands up, staring at the two, who are still too busy laughing at each other, oblivious to the discomfort they cause. The young man then catches their attention, looking down. Immediately, they stop laughing and look curiously to see what he wanted to show. He then bends down, saying he thinks they dropped something, while pretending to pick something up off the ground. However, it is a distraction. He activates a small utensil without them noticing. Stealthily, he attaches the small items to the drunk's chairs and quickly stands up, placing his gold coins on the table and stating that this round would be on him. Surprised and laughing even more, the two mock the engineer, saying that a doll like him recognizes who his owners are and insult him with mockery and disdain. However, their mockery is interrupted when the devices the engineer had placed on the chairs explode. The laughter turns into screams of fright at the sudden impact. Faced with what happened, the chef is in disbelief, wondering what had happened, while the two drunks are lying on the floor, sore and stunned by the explosion. The young man then draws the chef's attention, saying that he will look for the necessary piece and that he must be ready to pay. In the middle of the calm sea, in an almost deserted port with only one fisherman on the pier, the young engineer approaches, breaking the silence with his presence. The old fisherman, Tom Ferryman, then recognizes him and, surprised, presents the name of our protagonist, calling him Kuhl. Tom concludes that the young man is the last person he expected to see in that place. Kuhl complains to Tom about Chef Eric's doll breaking again and that he needs to fix the problem. Meanwhile, Tom jokes, knowing he would take any job, and asks why Kuhl is in a hurry to make money. Diffusing the situation, Kuhl responds that Tom shouldn't worry about it by acting like it's no big deal. Kuhl asks how business is as a navigator, as he doesn't think many people want to go to scrapyard. Tom responds that what's there isn't worth it because of the trash that falls on him. So Kuhl, with a bit of dismay, assumed that nothing had changed so far. The little interest in that place remains the same. Tom then questions Kuhl if he's ready to leave, hinting at going to the location they mentioned earlier. Kuhl, however, says that if Tom wants, He can go there himself and then bring the boat back to the pier. Without hesitation, Old Tom says that's fine with him and that old men like him should avoid so much effort. He warns the young man to leave the boat open when he returns. The speed with which Tom leaves surprises Cool, who wonders how old he is. Tom also says to leave the payment under the seat, surprising Cool once again, who questions him that he will really have to pay. He then takes Tom's small boat and heads towards the island he mentioned before. Upon arrival, it is notable that the island is a vast metal dump, covered by a mountain of debris and scrap, with a desolate landscape full of rubble. In the midst of so much trash, Cool walks along the metal tracks, searching among the debris for the materials he needs for his work. He then begins to sift through the piles and mountains of rubble, searching for the desired materials. With each piece that moves, the noise is intense, echoing throughout the vast landfill. He then happily finds a material, exclaiming that it could be worth something. With haste and enthusiasm, he removes the piece from among the rubble, smiling at his discovery. He exclaims that although it takes a long time, you can always find something interesting. He continues his search until dusk turns to dusk and gives way to night. Carrying many materials, Cool exclaims that he found several useful things, but no anima, which was his biggest goal. As he lifted some items from the pile of debris, he knew there was something in this place, that a person could search in these mountains their entire life, and even then, it wouldn't even be on the surface of the ground, buried under this place full of scrap. He then concludes that even though he didn't find the anima core he wanted, he can still use the materials he found to improve his arm, because you can always find something. In his distraction, he fails to notice an arm on the surface of a mountain of scrap metal directly in front of him. Suddenly, the hand grabs his foot, catching him by surprise and causing him to stumble. He then realizes that something is holding him, and as he falls, many pieces fly out, causing a thunderous noise. When he gets up, he realizes that something has held him so firmly that it won't let him escape. He begins to entertain the idea that something alive could be buried in that mountain of metal. "Let's go!" he screams, insisting on removing his foot, which was trapped by the hand that wouldn't let go in any way. He screams as he uses all his strength to break free. Finally, he manages to free himself from the ground, but ends up taking whatever was holding him with him. Then it is revealed to us that what was holding him was a woman. With the momentum that Cool had taken, they both went flying from the top of that place, landing in an unexpected jump. He then realizes, surprised by what he had just seen, a little disbelieved as he was about to fall. And then, they start falling down the entire mountain of scrap at an absurd speed. Admiring the woman, he tries to assimilate what is happening, surprised by the situation. After repairing the situation, he realizes the immense height from which they are falling, which takes him by surprise, and worry takes over him as the speed increases. Thinking quickly, without hesitation, he holds her arm tightly, trying to ensure that they are both safe and trying to control the fall. He then tucks her under his arms, shielding her from the impact as they both fall toward the ground with a violent impact. They finally reach the ground, causing a large, thunderous impact that reverberates with a noisy sound, scattering debris and dust everywhere. A little worn down and breathing heavily, the smoke begins to dissipate, slowly revealing the surrounding scenery and the state of the two after the impact. The smoke then clears, revealing Cool holding the mysterious woman in his arms as he gasps heavily due to the pain of the impact. Caused by the impact, Cool notices that his metallic arm is visibly damaged, which leaves him frustrated and irritated by the situation. He complains, feeling the pain after being hurt too much, with a look of frustration and tiredness evident on his face. However, even so, he reflects on the situation, realizing that it could have been much worse. The chapter then ends with him holding her in his arms and stating, with a tone of certainty, that she is, without a doubt, a lucky doll. The chapter begins with Cool in front of the doll, unable to believe what was right in front of him. He then reflects, saying that he has already found many things in that warehouse, but he didn't imagine he would have the chance to find one almost intact in that pile of scrap. From a greedy point of view, he reflects on the possibility of selling the doll and making a lot of money from it, envisioning the profits he could obtain. However, he soon reflects on the reality that if the doll was thrown away, there must be a reason. This prevents you from rushing in and rethinking whether it really works. When examining the doll, he thinks he doesn't recognize the design and wonders if it is an older model, noticing that it is made of a dense and unknown material, much more robust than what he usually works with. He then notices something in the doll's hand, and when he removes it, discovers that it is Kafira's pawn. He also notices that it is stained with blood, which makes him even more curious. He starts to find this strange, until someone asks what would be strange. He then claims to be the doll, as it was something he had never seen like it. Waking up to reality, he notices the presence of a girl and asks how long she had been there. She responds that she had been there long enough. With something in her hands, she remains restless, while Cool watches and remembers that her mother had mentioned not liking her leaving the house. She then says that Ponchi, the crow she carries with her, had broken again, which makes Cool visibly uncomfortable. Squeezing her cheeks, Cool asks her if she had already warned her to take better care of the crow. She, in pain, asks him to stop squeezing her cheeks. As he assesses Ponchi, she asks if he could fix it. He then says that apparently the internal mechanisms are stuck and that the problem should be simple enough to fix. The little girl then asks where he had found the doll, pointing to the object next to it. She then asks, irritated, whether he hadn't taken the doll away just because it was a female doll. Cool denies this, explaining that he only found her at the scrapyard. He adds that he is surprised by the good condition of the doll, despite its irregularities. The little girl, curious, asks what these irregularities are. He then states that the doll has an irregularity in its anima core. The little girl, her eyes wide with curiosity, asks again, "Anima?" Upset, Cool soon yells at her, asking if she never pays attention to what he says, as he lost count of how many times he explained this. As he speaks, he squeezes her cheeks again, making her scream, asking him to stop. He explains that it is their life energy that is meant to be used as a way to power Geovoran technology, including dolls. Your sister puts it simply, people give energy to dolls. Cool confirms. He then presents the core crystal, which allows the dolls to accept the anima and convert it into energy for activation, stating that every doll has one. He then says that this crystal no longer has any energy, as it is just the ore in its raw form, a technology that he claims is the strangest he has ever seen. Her sister then questions whether all these dolls look as alive as this one. Cool then notes that this specific doll has a very sophisticated design compared to the others. Hitting his core, he states that if it weren't for him, he would swear the doll was a human. However, without realizing it, he ends up activating it. Looking more closely at the doll's foot, Cool becomes distracted and doesn't realize what he has just done. Glowing brightly, the doll's core pulses, but Cool is so absorbed in admiring the meticulous engineering of the doll, which even has digits, that he doesn't notice. The little girl, scared, says, "This is very strange." Without paying any attention, Cool replies that she may think so, but it's because she doesn't see the level that this service doll can reach. Worried about the doll's core making an increasing noise, the little girl screams at him to stop messing with the doll's fingers. The doll then opens its eyes and becomes fully activated. Now activated, the doll watches the little girl scared by what is happening, while Cool holds her leg, admiring the quality and sophistication of its construction. The doll then questions him about what he thinks he is doing, taking him by surprise and leaving him without an answer. Assuming she might be confused, Cool, despite being nervous, tries to introduce himself and asks her name. However, without answering and completely ignoring his question, she advances towards him to attack him by surprise. She soon throws a punch that causes a tremendous impact, but Cool manages to protect himself in time using his metal arm. He admits it was a lucky block and wonders what kind of doll suddenly attacks someone as soon as they wake up. Cool reflects on how valuable the find was, as it is impossible to find machines in such good condition at scrapyard. As he thought this, the doll took advantage of his distraction and grabbed his collar. The doll then throws him with immense force, causing Cool to crash into his workbench, destroying it and scattering pieces around the place. He asks if she could wait a second, while he tries to assimilate the situation and understands that having touched her core may have generated a type of anima link that made him call her. He then gets scared and despairs when he realizes what is about to happen. He gets scared when he sees the doll heading towards the little girl and screams desperately, "Annie!" Very scared, Annie calls out to Cool as the doll advances towards her. After observing Annie closely, the doll realizes that she is just a child and hesitates to continue moving forward. Taking advantage of the doll's distraction, Cool rushes at her with a chair, shouting worriedly at Annie. He then hits the chair with all his strength on the doll's head, shouting for Annie to run away. The impact is so great that it causes a deafening boom. The little girl is surprised, but the doll turns around and is even angrier. Wasting no time, Annie hears Cool and starts to run away. Meanwhile, The doll advances towards Cool, who becomes worried when he realizes that it is extremely resistant. He concludes that the only solution is to turn it off. Cool then runs towards the doll, determined to touch its anima core. He believes that if he can break the anima link, he will be able to shut her down. Cool approaches quickly, focusing on the doll's anima reservoir. With an agile and precise movement, he advances at full speed, aiming directly at the crucial point that can deactivate it. However, the doll reacts quickly, grabbing Cool and throwing him against a metal table. The impact is violent, breaking the table and scattering pieces throughout the place. Cool, lying among the wreckage, realizes that a frontal attack will not work. He begins to evaluate the situation, looking for an alternative to reach the doll's anima reservoir. He then takes a close look at the wreckage he is standing on and thinks of a plan that he believes could work against her. Meanwhile, she approaches him completely irritated, asking who he is and what he did to her. As he stands up, he replies that he was just fixing her. With a hand on her belly, getting up and trying to recover, Cool also tells her that he found her at the scrapyard and then brought her to the place. She begins to observe the place as he tries to offer a passive alternative, asking if she has any questions. If only they could talk about it calmly. While offering this option, he raises his hands in surrender. She begins to question the situation, wondering why she was in the junkyard, if she had been thrown away, and why she doesn't remember any of it. He asks if the blacksmith really has the answers, and then he comes to the conclusion that he will make him count, advancing towards him once again as he thinks about it. He realizes that she hasn't changed her mind and is about to attack him again. Determined, he activates Plan B. Suddenly, the counter behind the doll explodes with a bang, attracting her attention. A large piece of metal from the table flies off at high speed after the explosion, causing the doll to turn around to try and react. The doll quickly associates what happened and deduces that, while he was on the ground, he must have placed bombs under the debris to cause the explosion and that this was all planned. However, despite her quick thinking, her body didn't react in time, and the giant piece of metal hits her square in the back, launching her forward. Taking advantage of the gap, Cool is already preparing for the next action as the doll heads towards him, and then the chapter ends with him squeezing her core. The chapter begins with a memory of the doll, where she wonders why she is not able to move. She sees a mysterious man, whose face she can't find in her database. The man delivers Kafira's pawn into the hands of the doll, where she cannot understand what exactly she should do with it. The mysterious man then leaves amid the smoke of the place while the doll screams for him to come back, wondering who he was. And just like that, your vision starts to darken. Then we can hear someone's voice asking if she could hear him. As she opens her eyes, he asks worriedly if he hadn't broken her. After opening her eyes fully, the doll sees Cool at her side, calmly saying that the previous action was only to momentarily turn her off. As her vision adjusts and she begins to regain consciousness, the details of her surroundings become clearer. She finds herself lying on a couch in Cool's workshop, with him watching intently at her side. Quickly, the doll leans on the sofa to get up, showing her hand adorned with an intricate metallic bracelet. With remarkable agility, she positions herself, preparing to deliver a powerful punch to Cool, driven by distrust and confusion. Cool then sighs, wondering with a tired tone if this situation isn't getting old because it's so repetitive. Then he presents a device in his hand with just one button and presses it. After that, the bracelets on the doll's hands start to beep, immediately catching her attention. And so, suddenly, she quickly begins to be pulled back by the bracelets, which exert enormous force on her arms. With a magnetic pull, her wrists are quickly attached to large metal plates located behind her. Now, with the doll immobilized and struggling to free itself, Cool warns her that she must save her strength, as the magnetic lock is resistant and will not break easily. Suddenly, the entrance door to the workshop opens abruptly. It was Eni yelling at Cool to stop as he was terrifying the doll with his actions. They then get into a heated argument. Eni insists that the doll wouldn't hurt her, but Cool counters that the doll tried to kill him. Soon after, they both stare at each other intensely without saying a word. Eni presses the magnet button, releasing the doll from the magnetic force that was holding it. Now free, the doll reflects on Eni's kind gesture. She watches the little girl curiously. With a welcoming smile, Eni tries to reassure the doll, telling her not to worry and that she could trust them. However, Cool presses the button on his device once again. Launching the doll against the large magnets again, He instantly immobilizes it while it moans in pain. Angry, Eni yells at him, complaining and questioning why he did this, considering she just proved the doll was not dangerous. He responds to Eni that he doesn't want to take any risks, as he is responsible for taking care of her well-being. Eni, on the other hand, shows her displeasure with Cool's attitude by looking him in the eyes. Cool then relents, agreeing to release the doll, but warns that if she tries anything, she will not hesitate to press the button again, and thus tightens her device. And so, 3 hours have passed since the incident, where they start to talk. Cool then recaps the situation, questioning the doll about its lack of memory of the events that occurred before the moment he activated it. She responds that the only thing she remembers is waking up in this current location. Before that, it only has fragments of its past. Restless Cool questions her about who her owner was. She responds that she doesn't remember anyone like that, not recognizing the man from her memory. Cool assumes his memory was erased by his summoner, as some owners seek confidentiality, but thinks a complete wipe is overkill. Meanwhile, Eni complains, saying it's not fair. She hypothesizes that memory loss could be a defect, which would explain her discard. That would be a logical and natural reason for her to have stopped at that location. He asks what she means by natural, catching her attention. He explains that for him, if something is broken, you don't throw it away, fixes itself. As he said this, she immediately notices his metal arm in thought. Eni then surmises that if she finds something that is hers, her memories might return. She shows Kafira's pawn, asking if it has any meaning to her. She takes the Kafira pawn in her hands and is surprised to start remembering some memories associated with it, like remembering that Kafira's pawn was something the mysterious man handed to you, but in your thoughts, you wonder what that could really mean. She then responds to them that she cannot recognize the artifact. Unhappy with the doll's response, Cool remains serious. He then says that he already hoped it wouldn't work, as it would be very convenient. However, before he could completely finish his sentence, Eni elbows him in the chest. In the morning, in the town square of Geld, Cool and the doll are walking. The doll asks where they are going. He explains that, as she doesn't remember anything, it is necessary to investigate her further. They go to the place where they can find information about its model, its function, and its purchase history. The doll questions him about helping her. He then explains that if he didn't do this, Eni would be furious. The doll asks why the little girl isn't with them then. Cool responds simply that it's a long story. As they walk, Cool asks the doll if the clothes are comfortable. She responds that the clothes don't allow much movement and, curious, asks if they were designed to prevent escape. Frightened, Cool asks if, by mentioning the escape, she is implying that she intends to attack him again. Annoyed, she just denied it. He says it's not like she can do that since her anima energy is tied to him. This makes her curious, and asks what anima could be. Cool then stops and says that they have finally arrived. They are in front of the adventurer's barracks. He suggests that maybe he should go in first, and the doll asks if there is a problem, and he responds that the records are not available to the public. He then enters the place, only asking her to wait a moment. She then accepts and waits outside the place. Suddenly, she starts to hear a loud laugh that immediately catches her attention. Looking around to discover the source of the laughter, she sees a man walking and saying that the task had been very easy. This man is introduced to us as Adventurer Tapa. Discouraged, one of the men commented that that guy had returned. The soldier next to him asks who he was, and the man replies that he was just a rich merchant's brat. Then that man's doll notices Cool's doll. Then he realizes that she is a doll, and being the first time he has seen one of that kind, he asks if she is a service doll. However, upon noticing her eyes, he denies it when he realizes that she looks too alive to be an ordinary service doll. He then begins to question himself in thought about who her summoner would be inside the adventurer's barracks. The environment is busy and full of people. An attendant, visibly excited, approaches and asks how she could help. However, upon realizing that it was Cool calling her by the name Momo, the attendant's expression changes to discouragement as she sees that it was him. He asks if this is how she treats her old friends. She says yes, especially when they haven't visited her for a whole month. Cool apologizes, explaining that he had a lot of work to do. Not very convinced, Momo asks what he is doing there. Cool then says he just needs a small favor. However, Momo immediately denies it without any hesitation. Cool says he will always be available to help when she needs it, but when he needs a favor, she denies it. Momo retorts, saying that you can't ask for a favor after ignoring her for so long. They are then interrupted by the rich man, who knocks on the table and arrogantly says that he needs a slave from the guild immediately. On the outside, she offers the service with a professional smile, asking how she can help. In thought, she complains about the fact that he is there again. The rich man says he is there to receive the reward for what he has accomplished. He then throws his giant bag onto the table, which has some heavy utensil inside. When it collides with the table, it makes a loud sound, attracting the attention of everyone around. The bag then slowly opens, revealing its contents, and it reveals a giant monster, now completely finished. Everyone around screams in surprise upon seeing the Titan-class magical beast, recognizing that such an achievement is worth thousands. This leaves our protagonist surprised. However, what impresses him most is, it is the wound located on the creature's belly, which appears to be a burn. He then begins to wonder what kind of weapon could cause that kind of damage. Then, the chapter ends with him watching the arrogant man, who laughs loudly while wondering what he could be hiding. The chapter begins outside the guild building, where there, the doll is waiting for Cool's return, with belief in when he said that in that place there was information about his past. She also wonders if they could identify the mystery man with Kafira's pawn. Inside the Adventurers Guild, everyone is surprised, wondering how Tappa managed to defeat a Titan-class creature, a feat they had never witnessed before. Meanwhile, Cool still wonders what kind of weapon could cause such a peculiar burn. At that moment, Tappa begins to show off to everyone, stating that the beast was unable to defeat his powerful axe. Disgusted, Momo says that she is not interested in what happened, but that she would like him to remove the creature from there. Tappa soon approaches Momo, offering her the option of joining him on an adventure or going somewhere more private. On the outside, Momo tries to politely decline, but on the inside, she is completely angry. Tappa continues to insist, stating that he's a good guy, while bothering Momo even more, when in fact the axe was just coated to look good quality and has a material that shines. He also comments that it is possible to see that the steel patches were not coated properly. Upset, Tappa ridicules him, questioning what a peasant like him would know about weapons. However, Cool responds that he may not be an expert, but he responds that he doesn't know of any axe that causes burns. This makes Tappa even more uncomfortable and apprehensive about Cool. Everyone then begins to ridicule him, saying that they already imagined that he would not be capable of such a feat, and that he was not intelligent in not knowing how to omit the truth, calling him an amateur. Enraged, he holds tight to his axe. Cool quickly realizes the situation and prepares to react. Tappa expertly sets up a reverse slam onto Cool, and thus delivers a swift blow. However, Cool quickly defends himself using his metal arm. The impact was so strong that it broke Tappa's axe, leaving him stunned. After the incident, Cool reflects on the situation, imagining that this could have happened frequently in previous events. He is relieved to have prepared himself, reinforcing his metal arm. Completely enraged, Tappa orders his doll to attack Cool. Disappointed, the doll exclaims his discontent, thinking he could finally rest in that place. Preparing to attack with his fireblade, he states that he wants to get this over with. Outside the building, Cool's doll was waiting for him calmly, until, suddenly, the guild entrance simply explodes, taking the doll by surprise. Completely discreet, Cool's doll remains perplexed. With Cool down from the impact of the blow, she runs to check if he is okay. He stands up, saying that he is completely fine and that his arm took the impact. However, he soon despairs when he realizes that his legs are on fire. Meanwhile, leaving the place was Tappa's doll. Noticing his arrival, Cool's doll remained alert and apprehensive, while Cool himself remained motionless, trying to put out the fire in his legs. Tappa's doll then rises from the spot and, upon dispelling the mist, says that his blanket was still new and is now on fire as well. Then, Cool is perplexed by what he sees, saying it's the first time he's seen a battle dummy up close. Tappa's doll then notices that next to Cool was a doll, the same one he had noticed earlier. From behind the doll, Tappa complains about why he's still standing there and orders him to finish off Cool. Meanwhile, the doll complains that its owner never shuts up. Upon order, Tappa's puppet immediately declares that it's time to end this by going after Cool. Completely aware of the doll's strength, Cool says there is no way to face him, quickly heading towards Tappa's doll strike. Then, she dodges Tappa's doll's blow with impressive speed. Soon after, she gets closer to him and leans on her spear, and he leans on his spear to deliver a precise kick to his face, a kick so powerful that it causes the doll to sink into the ground, breaking the ground while she stands firm with her spear. This leaves Tappa and Cool perplexed and surprised by the situation, while Tappa's puppet remains completely frustrated. Meanwhile, Cool's doll remains sublime after the feat, thinking about how he managed to accomplish that. From the top of a window, it is possible to observe the entire event as if someone were supervising it. A mysterious being watches everything from behind the large window, who apparently shows joy with what is happening. Cool begins to wonder how she managed to do that, reluctant to accept the possibility that she could be what he thinks. Suddenly, the spear she was holding starts to catch fire. Surprised and afraid of the sudden incident, she drops the gun. Immediately, Tappa's doll fires at her, grabbing her spear, and he quickly tries to hit her with a powerful blow, but she dodges with great agility. He tries to hit her again with another blow from his spear, but she jumps back, dodging the attack once again. She reflects on the situation as if her body were moving automatically, as if it were made for it. Then, now focused, Cool's doll fixes its eyes on the target. Upon realizing that Cool's doll is a battle doll, he questions her about why she is not using her abilities. He then warns her, saying that if she thinks she can win without using her skills, she is mistaken, and that she'd better think again as she prepares to strike another blow. He then begins a series of consecutive blows against Cool's doll, which he begins to deftly dodge. Impetuous and completely focused, Tappa's doll prepares to deliver an even more powerful blow. He then launches his skillful technique, the crescent flame. This blow causes Cool's doll to be stunned, while Cool himself states that this is too powerful and that she couldn't take it. Cool then tells her to get out of there quickly. Cool's doll, however, says he can stop this, stating that he knows he can. She then concentrates to know what to do. However, with the blow approaching, she begins to be perplexed, having thought of something else. She remembers the mysterious hooded man who said goodbye to her before leaving, and it is revealed at the end of the chapter that her name is Annika. The chapter begins with the powerful blow of Grease, Tappa's doll, heading towards Annika, Cool's doll. She remains perplexed, looking at the approaching technique, while remembering the mysterious man's goodbye. Quickly, Cool runs towards her, shouting at her to get out of the way. The blow was about to hit her, but suddenly a drop of water appeared in front of her. Suddenly, something begins to form, as if it were a pearl, making even Annika wonder what was happening. Thus, the water technique begins to completely cover Annika's body, extinguishing the fire of the technique that was launched against her. The technique, whose name was Pearl of the Ocean, completely covers Annika, enveloping her as if she were a real pearl. This leaves Tappa surprised. This also surprises Cool. This also leaves Grizz, Tappa's doll, completely surprised. The protection technique that involved Annika begins to fall apart when it touches the ground, bursting like a simple bubble. Then, a figure approaches, revealing who was responsible for this technique. The person who had launched the technique was a lady with glasses and blue hair. She is introduced as Kalia, an ordinary class battle doll and assistant to the guild director. Kalia is complaining about the disruption the situation is causing. Desperate about the situation, Momo starts screaming in her thoughts about what Cool had done. With anger written on her face, Momo looks at Cool, who tries to hide the situation, while she herself gets angry and demands that he not look away. Discouraged and desperate, Momo begins to lament, saying that everything is over and that she will definitely be fired. Katia then states that, if her information is correct, as always, these two did not have any license to cross the guild's lands. This makes Cool uncomfortable, while Nika becomes apprehensive. With common sense, Katia politely asks him to leave the place immediately, warning that otherwise drastic measures will be taken. Cool then asks about Tappa, claiming that he was the one who instigated him to act that way. Tappa responds that he wasn't instigating anyone, and that he was just protecting the guild from invaders. Katia, in turn, clarifies that any action against Tappa, as he is a member of the Adventurers Guild, is a private matter and does not concern Cool, which enrages him and makes him question whether this is serious. Then, Tappa starts laughing and ridiculing Cool, stating that he will have the guild on his side, while Cool would have nothing more than a doll and trash. This clearly bothers Cool, who becomes extremely angry. Wasting no time, Cool also starts mocking Tappa, mentioning his broken axe and daring him to face him so he won't be made a fool of again. This only makes Tappa even more angry. Cool, with a defiant attitude, still says he would give him a discount, while Tapa, irritated, responds that no one asked for his help. Annika, in disbelief at such a straight face, wonders if Cool isn't ashamed. At that moment, Cool approaches Annika and asks them to leave the place. Before she can leave, Annika's attention is caught by someone calling out to her. It is Grizz, Tapa's doll, who says he is impressed with her movements, considering them good for a broken doll, a phrase that completely bothers Annika. Already far from that place and on the way home, Cool complains about not having gotten what he wanted and about not knowing Annika's origins. Annika, however, claims that this is not true. She reveals that she had a vision with an unknown man who called her by the name Annika. Surprised by the discovery, Cool reflects on how this name suits her. Annika then asks Cool what a battle dummy is, as Grizz had mentioned it during their fight. He explains to her about service dolls, which are designed to perform basic tasks as their capabilities are limited. However, in recent years, a brilliant engineer has also created dolls with combat abilities thanks to anima. Nika asks what the anima would be about, and Cool responds that he will start explaining the basics, just like he does with his sister. He asks her for his full attention, as it is crucial that she understands the concept well. Cool begins to explain about the anima, saying that the anima is an energy that flows through the world, and that connects all living beings. He also warns that without the anima, nothing would exist but dust, and he explains that all human beings have this anima center with which they obtain the energy they need. However, be aware that the ability of human beings to manipulate this energy is finite. However, it also says that this changes with the creation of the dolls. He explains that dolls are autonomous creations that can have as much anima as their summoner, and he says that in the case of the battle dolls, they can manipulate the anima. He also says that the dolls have the ability to distort and use the anima of their summoners, to then release it in a devastating way with a lot of power. He then said that now anyone can take advantage of the infinite potential of their anima, being able to acquire different types of super powerful abilities. However, he highlighted that this is only possible if you have luck and money on your side to achieve it. Annika asks if it's possible for her to be a battle doll. The question makes Cool start investigating to understand whether this is possible or not. He replies that there is no chance, as battle dolls were recently invented using cutting-edge technology, which makes Annika uncomfortable. He even mentions that the technology she is using is practically Stone Age, compared to the advances of battle dolls. Annika then questions whether it would be possible to remove her core and replace it with a core from a current battle doll. Cool responds that it's not that simple, as the core needs to be compatible with the doll. One cannot add the energy of a battle doll to a service doll, not even in a million years, and the opposite is not feasible either. He warns that some people have tried to do this, but the stories of such attempts are often tragic. He adds that in reality, probably only a few people in the world know how this type of modification works, and that person must be paid well to keep this knowledge secret. Discouraged, Annika says she understands the situation. Meanwhile, Cool wonders why anyone would create a doll with technology as primitive as Annika's. Assuming she was just a beta experiment, he wonders why there would be a need to remove her memory. He then suggests that they could discuss some ideas with his little sister, saying that although she probably can't resolve the situation, it would be nice to have someone to listen. Annika realizes that he values his sister a lot. When asked how she came to this conclusion, she explains that she observed that he only helped her because of her request. He then explains that since his sister can't leave the house, he lives vicariously through her and claims that she is not a burden. He says that if there's something she really wants, he's willing to do it. Because of this attitude, Annika compares Cool to a doll, saying that he would be a doll of her sister Annie. However, he denies it. As he approaches the house, Cool notices that the door is open and wonders why. He then starts to go inside, calling his sister to see if she was home. However, when he opens the door, he is frightened by what he sees. Desperate, he screams for his sister when he sees her lying on the floor. Scared, Annika asks what is wrong with her. Holding his sister in his arms, Cool desperately screams for her to wake up. He continues to scream as his bird lies broken on the ground. In the voice of a doctor, he says he doesn't know the cause. However, another voice responds that he should have known about his daughter's condition a long time ago, and that, even so, the treatment had no effect. The voice questions again how he could know that she is sick and not understand why. The doctor then responds that the information provided was just recommendations. The fact is that he simply does not have enough resources to examine the patient properly. The voice then asks who could help. He suggests they could go to the capital. There, they could look for a healer who could assess their daughter's condition. However, he mentions that the cost for an assessment would be very high. Cool then says that if it all comes down to money, he quickly asks how much it would take. The doctor responds that it's not just a price tag, and that there are many factors to consider. Completely ignoring the doctor and interrupting him, Cool ends the chapter by asking once again how much is needed. The chapter begins at dusk, with the doctor saying goodbye and leaving the place. Cool's mother also says goodbye, while Cool himself is sitting on a bench. Cool is completely grief-stricken, reflecting on his sister and everything that has occurred. He apologizes to his mother, who is surprised by the sudden action. He said she shouldn't have gone to his workshop, stating that it added a lot of stress to his day, and that it was his fault. These words make his mother frown, visibly uncomfortable. His mother then told him not to say such things, remembering that he was the one who took her home and called the doctor. She adds, saying that he saved her. After these words, she begins to look at the sky, while Cool watches her in silence. Her mother then says that at times like this, she wishes her father was still here. He asks if his father would know what to do. His mother says no, but that he would know how to put a smile on each of their faces. His mother's comment makes Cool feel grief-stricken and sad. As we head to Cool's workshop, we see Annika waiting for him inside, commenting that he has been gone for a long time. Suddenly, with a creak, the door opens. Cool enters and is immediately greeted by Annika, who asks what happened and if Annie is okay. He says that Annie hasn't woken up yet, and the doctor doesn't know what the problem is, and that they will need to find a better healer in the capital. Annika suggests they leave by asking where the capital is. He then says it's not that simple. However, Annika responds directly, stating that it is just a matter of going to the place, as Annie needs treatment. Before she can continue her comment, an angry Cool punches the wall hard, causing a loud bang. This takes Annika by surprise, making her nervous. He asks if Annika has any idea how much it costs to go to the capital and still pay a healer. He explains that he worked for years and still couldn't get even a fraction of what his sister needs. He says his sister's heart is failing, and her body is breaking down because her heart isn't strong enough. He asks if Annika understands what her sister is feeling, that she has to work hard every day, enduring pain to smile. And it's all his fault, because as a brother, he must take care of her. Soon after, he apologizes, saying he doesn't expect her to understand. He then says that the reality of dolls is not so different from that of humans. Soon after, Cool compares both by stating that they are easy to break and very expensive to repair. Cool turns around, and Annika asks where he is going, but he just ignores the question. Amidst the rain falling around him, Cool runs tirelessly. Then he reflects that he should have known that the work he did as a repairman did not bring in the necessary money. He concludes that there is only one guaranteed method to make lots of money. He then stops running amidst the heavy rain. Arriving at the Adventurers Guild, he says that he needs to become an adventurer. Cool arrives at the reception asking for an urgent task, saying he would do any mission, but the receptionist informs him that he cannot assign tasks to unlicensed adventurers. He begs, shouting that he needs her as he pounds the table. Then a lady arrives asking if there is any problem, immediately catching Cool's attention. The lady then says that any questions should be directed directly to her. Recognizing her as Kalia, the director's doll, Cool immediately remembers her and says he wants to apply for an adventurer's license. She then says that, unfortunately, she will have to decline the request and asks if he needs anything else. He questions on what basis she denies it, and she explains that the headmaster has strictly banned him and his doll from participating in any guild tasks, clearly outraging him. She says circumstances will not change, and complaints should be sent by letter to the responsible department. It asks if it needs to show the nearest exit, or if she would need to take him to the nearest exit in a threatening tone. He then asks what he will do now, because without the license, he cannot help his sister. Looking around, he notices papers on a table that catch his attention, while Kalia asks him to leave. Cool then yells at her, asking her to let her talk to the director, as she believes he might change his mind. However, she begins to prepare a coup. Then, she holds Cool's arm while charging the technique. The technique creates momentum that pushes Cool back. The momentum in her arm causes her to press Cool against the table, scattering many papers around. The attendant, frightened by the sudden incident, wonders what is happening. Then, Kalia uses a quick movement with her foot. While asking if he thinks he could become an adventurer with the level he has, she puts her foot on Cool's back, pressing him further against the table and throwing her weight on him. She then disdains him, saying that she hasn't even used her special technique yet. Kalia then mentions that his metal arm is a liability to him, and if she were to break it, he would be nothing more than damaged goods, with no power to defend himself and able to die in the beat of a heart. Still pressed by her, Cool begins his conversation that he mentions knowing someone to whom she would say exactly the same, someone damaged and fragile, but who fights every day of their life. If he can't do the same for her, then he should leave. This leaves Kalia speechless, making her release him. She becomes tense and reflective about the situation. Embittered, holding his injured metal arm, Cool walks away. She then says that he's just a boy, but still, for a moment, Cool managed to make her nervous. But Kalia quickly denies it, saying that this must have been just her imagination. She asks her attendant to clean the place before the director returns, and the attendant readily agrees. Kalia, while collecting the papers, notices something different that surprises her. This unusual moment was in the papers she was holding. In disbelief, she wonders if Cool really could have done what she's thinking. At the workshop, Annika, still surprised by the situation, asks what they are going to do. "You heard me?" says Cool, with a paper in hand. He reveals that the paper he is holding is a mission. The chapter ends with Cool declaring that they will do her. The chapter begins with Annika asking how long it takes for them to reach the mission location. Cool says they must be getting close. Cool told Annika that he didn't need to go because it was his fight, but she replied that, as he was her summoner, they are both linked and would share the same destiny. She asks if it can be useful, and he immediately responds that, having faced a battle dummy, it will certainly be a good help to him, and that it would be stupid for him to refuse. Annika expresses that considering Cool's lack of investment in her future, her survival appears to be of little importance. He responds that that was not his intention. Annika asks if he's sure the mission is worth the risk, suggesting there are other ways to make money. Cool responds that a quest is the best chance for quick pay, especially if it involves a dungeon, as they might find something valuable inside. Cool thinks that Annie's time is running out, and that if there was another option, he would take it. However, your sister needs the money immediately. "We've arrived," says Cool after he and Annika arrive in front of a huge dungeon entrance. Alika questions whether this is the right path, fearing the unknown dangers and the risk of total disaster without a proper assessment of her abilities. Cool, impatient, scolds Annika for her delay, reminding her that the dungeon is close and that they cannot waste time. Annika ponders whether Cool is being brave or simply reckless, questioning his fearless attitude, but that same attitude makes her smile. Well, she concludes by considering that Cool's fearless attitude can, in fact, be seen as a strong point. As she thinks this, they advance further into the dungeon. Cool then turns on his light stick to illuminate this very dark cave, and so, lighting the way, he and Annika continue on their way into the deep cave. Annika asks the details of the quest, and he responds that he doesn't know for sure, as the task was vague, only knowing that a dungeon has been discovered and the contents need to be extracted. Annika questions whether the blade they have will be enough to face any enemy they may encounter as she draws her weapon. Annika expresses doubts about the gun, even though it is the most comfortable. Cool assures that it is suitable for the C-class mission and that it has additional tricks, including a special feature. She questions whether Cool is referring to the prototype, considering it unwise to trust her life to a weapon that was added at the last minute. And then suddenly an eye opens. An eye that is located on the ceiling of the cave, just watching Annika and Cool, who tells her that they probably won't need to resort to the prototype. He responds that the creatures in the dungeon shouldn't pose much of a threat. She wonders why she feels a bad feeling, even though it's a C-class mission. She wonders if the feeling comes from the nervousness of a first mission, or if it's a warning from her old self. Annika asks Cool which way they should go, as the paths diverged at that moment, leaving him thinking. Cool exclaimed if Annika has ever seen this, referring to the eye on the wall he found, surprised by the discovery. Cool comments, with both disgust and curiosity, that the eye in the wall is so repulsive that he almost wants to touch it. Annika is disgusted by the idea, while the eye looks scared. Suddenly, Annika notices something different, which Cool hadn't noticed yet. Something that makes her nervous and scared, calling for Cool. Distracted, Cool asks what Annika thinks the eye in the wall is, suggesting it could be some kind of parasite. Meanwhile, Annika immediately shouts at him to turn around. Cool then turns around asking what was going on. After turning around, he is stunned by what he was seeing, so nervous that he dropped his light stick and hit the ground. What he saw were thousands of eyes watching them, leaving Annika apprehensive and Cool perplexed. The eyes then widened their eyes watching the two. Haunted, Cool looks at the thousands of eyes watching them and asks what this means. Then one of the eyes opens its wings, and then we are shown that these eyes are actually on the backs of bats, where Cool screams at the revelation that they are bats with man eyes. A man-eyed bat is a demon that detects threats with its eyes on its back and mobilizes the entire colony. Cool then comments that such a large colony is not normal. He then warns Annika by shouting at her to stay alert. Then again, Annika takes her sword out of its sheath, preparing for the confrontation. And with quick and consecutive cuts, Annika manages to cut several of them. Annika thinks her instincts were right and the gun felt natural to her, but she still feels something is wrong. In Cool's description, one of the bats bites his shoulder, causing him to scream intensely in pain. Scared by the surprise moment, Annika runs to Cool amid the commotion, but suddenly she feels a shock run through her body. The shock was so intense that she felt immediate weakness and ended up slipping. She wonders what is happening after feeling a sudden weakness that causes her to fall to the ground, just supporting herself with her sword. In anger, Cool instinctively pulls the man-eyed bat from his shoulder, forcefully removing it. He then throws the bat against the wall as he notices that there are many more coming at them to attack them. After seeing the thousands of bats around, Cool exclaimed that they need to eliminate them at once. Cool says, pulling a disc out of his pocket, that he hopes this will save them. He then launches among the thousands of man-eyed bats as they advance on him. Suddenly, the disc whistles, signaling 3 as it moves between the bats. He blows the whistle again, signaling 2, and spinning frantically, it beeps once again, indicating the number 1. At that moment, Cool shouts for Annika to get down quickly. Then, with one last beep, Cool's device indicates the number 0. Immediately, the device shoots electrical currents that hit all nearby bats, while Annika and Cool remain low, with their faces on the ground. After the event, a large smoke rises from the roasted bats as Cool and Annika stand up. Annika watches her core, worried and confused about what had happened. Cool exhales in relief and asks if Annika is okay. Annika says that the bat almost severed her bond with Cool by feeding on her anima. Cool confirms that he is still dizzy, and Annika ponders that these creatures are attracted to anima. She wonders what could have attracted such a large colony. You're almost at the end of the video and still haven't left a like? Help out the channel. Hit that like button now. If you want the next part, leave a comment and a like too. And if you're not subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. Cool deduces that there must be something incredibly powerful nearby and that it is probably at the end of one of these tunnels. Annika then wonders which one she could be in. Cool then mentions in thought that before she even asked, he already knew which way was right. He then claims that this is the way, and she asks how he knows. Cool didn't know how to explain it, but he was sure it was there. They then follow that path. Cool says he knew that what was waiting for him at the end of that tunnel was capable of changing everything. He then arrives at a large exit from that tunnel. They arrive at a vast place with water on the ground and large rocks scattered everywhere, and in the center of that place something shines with an immense radiance. On top of a pillar, there was a statue of a woman holding a man in her arms. Absurdly stunning. And so, seeing the necklace that man was carrying, Cool reflects that his life up until that moment. He ends the chapter with the reflection that his old life up to that point would soon be just a distant memory.